Hello everybody, I'm Justin from Playing Board Games, and I'm going to be doing an Arkham Horror Files buy guide today, because there's a lot in the series, and people who are just starting out might be like, what the heck should I buy? There's Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, Eldritch Horror, Elder Sign, Arkham Horror the card game. Which one do I buy? Well, I'm here to help you figure out what that is, because I have played all of them, except for that new one, The Final Hour. I like my Arkham Files games to be thematic. I'm not really into the pulpy action side of it. So I'm going to be talking about everything but The Final Hour in as much detail as I can. Let's get started. We're going to be talking about Arkham Horror 2nd Edition first. Now this one is technically out of print. So I'm not really going to be like, you must buy this one. Look for it, buy it at whatever inflated price it is at. However, if you are interested in Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, this is what is different about it than the other ones. So this one came out in, I think, like 2004, and it's the 2nd edition of a game that came out, I think, in the 80s. I could be completely wrong with that. But with a game like this, this game is kind of its time. It's very rules heavy. In some rules that aren't exactly elegant. However, for each rule that is super over the top and super board gamey, it is also very flavorful and thematic. So there's going to be a lot going on in Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, and it's going to be very overwhelming. But the story it tells, and just the act of moving through the city of Arkham, there's no better game in the Arkham Files collection for being able to just live in the world of Arkham, like Arkham City. So that's what Arkham Horror has going for it. It was my first, actually it was my first big board game purchase in my life. And it got me into this whole mythos and this board gaming world, so I really like it. But it's not for everybody. It's not for new gamers. If you see, oh, there's Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. This looks really fun. It's not good for you. The pros, lots of flavor, lots and lots of flavor. It also gives you really good stories as the players. However, it's out of print, so it's pricey. That's one of the cons. And in addition, it's very unintuitive for a lot of the rules. A lot of the stuff we know about it is just because we played the game probably 200 to 300 times. So it also takes a long time. And it also has this weird point where it lulls, where you can't win, but the game can't lose yet. So you're kind of just hitting here and clashing. So I love Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, but those are the pros and cons for it. Next up, we got Eldritch Horror. So Eldritch Horror, I was so excited when this game came out. I played a lot of Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, and I was like, I'm ready for the next one. This one takes place over the whole world. So immediately you do lose that kind of intimate setting that Arkham Horror 2nd Edition provides. However, Eldritch Horror to me is like a fixed Arkham Horror. The game plays better. The game's more of a board game. There's more modern rules in it. There's still a lot of heavy, clunky rules in Eldritch Horror, but not in comparison to Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. The stories it tells is still good. However, it doesn't have the same, as I said, the intimate impact that Arkham Horror 2nd Edition provides. However, with that said, if you are looking for a heavy, story-based, challenging, cooperative game in the Arkham Files, Eldritch Horror is probably your best bet. It provides more replay. I don't want to say more replayability, but it is, as like Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, it is infinitely replayable, which some of the later games that we're going to be talking about on this list don't do. So how it works is you choose an ancient one, and then there's going to be, you have to solve 3 mysteries associated with that ancient one. This does vary a bit, but I'm not going to get pedantic. If you solve those 3 mysteries, you win the game. If you don't, you lose. However, there's usually 6 mysteries, especially once you start getting the expansion content. I am not looking at providing a buy guide right now for the expansion content. If there are people who are interested in that kind of thing, let me know in the comments below. Eldritch Horror is kind of bare bones. in its base box compared to something like Arkham Horror. However, the first expansion really pads out and fixes that problem for Eldritch Horror. So if you're looking at picking up Eldritch Horror, I think it's called Forsaken Lore. Who knows? My brain is old and mush at this point. I think if you're going to want to pick up Eldritch Horror, you're going to want to pick up Forsaken Lore, which is kind of a con against it. So pros and cons for Eldritch Horror. Pro. It keeps that heavy flavor of the players working against the entity or the Ancient One really great, really strong. It's more of a game than Arkham Horror while still providing those fun stories. And the game is also just like really replayable and also really fun. It's my recommendation for that kind of team Arkham Horror-like experience. Cons, as I said, because you're going across the entire globe, there is kind of a lack of intimacy, especially with adventurers. With Arkham Horror, you feel like you're working in a city. In Eldritch Horror, not so much. Hey, you're in China, I'm in America, let's wave to each other. That's about the interaction in Eldritch Horror. The other con is that it kind of does lack a bit in just its base box. You need some expansions, especially focus tokens, which you can honestly just proxy until you get the expansion with them. It kind of lacks some game in there. So that's probably the biggest con against Eldritch Horror, but I still highly recommend it. Let's see what's next. I don't remember the order I made these. Elder Sign! Okay. Elder Sign. Nice bite chunk Cthulhu Yahtzee. So right away, this game is very digestible is the word for it. This is a game that, this is the only Arkham Files game that I played with my mom because it's really simple. It's just Yahtzee, pretty much. The game is very light on flavor. So if you are looking for a very flavorful Arkham Horror Files game, Elder Sign is not for you. However, if you're looking for an Elder Sign game to play with a wide variety of gamers, Elder Sign is definitely for you because anyone can get the idea of rolling dice and playing Yahtzee, and there's some fun flavor, and it still actually can be quite difficult. Not in the base game, though. That's probably the biggest problem with Elder Sign, is that the base game is very easy. There are a bunch of house rules you can play with, but I'm of the opinion that if the game needs house rules to be better, it's not. That's kind of a big knock against it, because I don't like to print out stuff or no additional rules. I just like the game to be a game in itself. The Streets of Arkham expansion for Elder Sign did fix a lot of these issues and made the game a lot harder. So if you are interested in Elder Sign, and you find that it to be too easy, I recommend picking up the Streets of Arkham expansion afterwards. Once again, the expansion just add more cards. There's some like a blessed, cursed mechanic. So like I don't say apart from Streets of Arkham, none of the expansions are really worth it. Except, however, so I've not played any of the story-based expansions, which do help make the game more flavorful, I imagine. I think I played one of them and it was an improvement. But the problem is those are pretty self-contained. So if you're going to grab Elder Sign and you think it's too easy, I want to grab Streets of Arkham with it. However, if you're looking for an easy game, Elder Sign is probably the one. It's the most approachable. So pros for Elder Sign, as I said, very approachable game. It's also really bite-sized. So like it says 1.5 hours, but like I can get through a game with 2 or 3 people in 45 minutes. So it's the quickest of the Arkham Horror Files games, and it's a great way. It's a good time to spend like 45 minutes playing. I think if it was any longer, it would be a bit not nice, but it's like the perfect length for what it is. Biggest con against it for me is that the flavor's lacking. So if you're looking for flavor, Elder Sign's not for you, and it kind of is a bit too easy. It's a bit too easy, and we play the Arkham Horror Files games to get, punched in the throat a few times. Arkham Horror the card game. Okay, straight up, Arkham Horror the card game is probably my favorite board game I've ever played. I have more hours than I know have gone into Arkham Horror the card game. It's my favorite Arkham Horror Files game. However, I'm going to just say this. You only want to get into Arkham Horror the card game if you're looking to get into, like, it's a commitment. You can't just be like, you can grab a core game and be like, I am buying Arkham Horror the card game. This is fun. but it's not going to give you the full Arkham Horror the card game experience. So that's like the biggest problem with Arkham Horror the card game in terms of just people looking to buy into it, is that it's a commitment. So it plays 1 to 4 players. However, you need 2 copies of the core game to like be able to comfortably make decks for 4 people. So that's a commitment. Number 2, it's a living card game, which means it releases in cycles, so you can buy cycles slowly, but there are now like 5 cycles. I think they're just releasing. There's Dunwich Legacy, Carcosa, Forgotten Age, Circle Undone, Dream Eaters, In-South Conspiracy. So there's 6 cycles. And those cycles each have a little small expansion box of their own with 6 packs associated with it. So that means there's 742 individually other items that you can buy for this game, not including the side products. So if you look at that and you're like, Justin, that's a lot of product. Yes, it is a lot of product. So once again, Arkham Horror the card game is a commitment. However, you can buy in bite-sized chunks. So you can like focus on just buying the Dunwich Legacy, which will make your game better, and you have a whole other 8 adventures to play. But it's the most flavorful Arkham Horror experience I've ever played in my life. And the stories it tells are amazing, and fun and engaging. There's ups and downs. The downs are not as down as the ups are like up. Man, like the good moments in this game are freaking amazing. So if you're looking for a story-based experience and you're not scared of the commitment, Arkham Horror the card game is for you. In addition, like the replayability is like, yeah, the scenarios don't really change from scenario to scenario. However, your decks and the investigators you play do change from scenario to scenario. So that's where the replayability comes from. The fact that like you get to decide how you want to play each time you play it. And the game will still throw curveballs at you. Travis, Britt, and I have recorded a lot of Arkham Horror the card game content on our channel, which you can find if you just like look through our channel. You open up the videos list, you'll get hit with one like every 4 videos. We're not bored with it. I'm not even close to bored with Arkham Horror the card game. There's so much I want to do, and I'm going to be dead before I can like do all of it. It's crazy. So pros of Arkham Horror the card game, really fun. It has a glowing recommendation from me, and the flavor is insane. Biggest cons, it's a commitment. You can't just buy, you won't get good enjoyment just buying the core box. It's a living card game experience, and it expects you to at least keep up with a good chunk of it in order to be there. To get the full experience. However, because it is a cooperative living card game, you can choose the pace in which you play and buy, which is nice. But I'll stress again, this is not one you just pick up to play. You need to like grab a little bit to make it actually worthwhile, to make it so that the game opens up and becomes good for you. Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. So this one's really cool. This one is fully cooperative. In the 1st edition, one player would play against the other players, but no, not in 2nd edition. In 2nd edition, you will be playing together against an app, which you can download on Steam or something else for free. The base game comes with, I think, 4 scenarios, and there are 2 or 3 scenarios you can buy on Steam right now for money, which gives you a big chunk of content just out of the box. The flavor in Mansions of Madness is awesome. It's very different than Arkham Horror or Eldritch Horror, where instead of like even being in the city of Arkham, it cuts it down even smaller. You are in a bite-sized story. So if Arkham Horror the card game was a novel, was a novel series, Eldritch Horror and Arkham Horror would be the novel, and Mansions of Madness would be the short story. So you get to experience one event, usually told over one night, sometimes 2, and it's a very intimate storytelling experience, and there's a lot of cool things to discover within each scenario. The big problem with Mansions of Madness is that it's the replayability is very low in comparison to the other ones. I have gotten a lot of replayability out of it. I don't mind playing scenarios again and again because like the game itself is still good enough, and I always usually try to play with new people for new scenarios. But not a lot of people are like me. I'm a weirdo. I know it. So that's the biggest problem with Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, is that the replayability is down. The scenarios themselves are stellar. Like there's some really good stories told in this game, and they're really fun to see them unfold. And there's one in the base game that I haven't even beaten yet. Like I haven't even gotten close. So like that one is fun to replay to see if I can do better. The game is also, I don't want to say it's like unbalanced at lower player counts, but it is harder. There are some house rules that I found online for for 2 players, which does help out a bit, but it's still just a bit. Once again, as I said earlier, when you have to house rule stuff out of the game, it's a little bit, it's a point against the game. I really do like Mansions of Madness though, and it's also probably up there with Elder Sign for the easiest for players to approach. A lot of these Arkham File games, you pull out the box and start pulling out pieces, and everyone at the table is like, dude, this guy expects us to play this game? Are you kidding me? These pieces, there's so many, the box is so big. But the actions for Mansions of Madness are very easy, and the players will immediately be like, this app thing is really cool. It's like I'm playing a video game board game, and that has hit every time. I have not had a fail with this game in terms of its complexity, because the gameplay itself on the player's turn is actually super simple. So like, pros for Mansions of Madness, flavor is insane. Absolutely insane. Number 2, very approachable gameplay system. Like the game itself is kind of, there's some complex rules in it, but the game itself plays really simple. It's just the feeling it has, the intimacy is very, very, very fun. Biggest cons for Mansions of Madness, it's a bit pricey. It's been pricey, and the replayability is very low for its price. If you're weird like me, you won't mind playing scenarios over and over and over again, but you get more scenarios with each expansion and more pieces and more stuff like that, so there's a little bit of a commitment in terms of making sure your game stays replayable, which is it's a bit unfortunate, but I do think Mansions of Madness is really good, and if you're looking for a nice flavorful experience for people who like story games, Mansions of Madness is probably for you. Man, I don't even know if this buy guide is helpful, but I'm just talking about these games because I played a bunch of them. Last on our list is Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. So this one's strange. So there was a bit of controversy when this game first came out. I remember a lot of people did not like the look of it. I have no problem with the look of it. I'm easy to please. I'm like, I don't care. It's Arkham the city, but it just looks like a spaceship. I don't give a flip. And it also takes a lot from the other games. So it has a lot of Arkham Horror, the card game, in it, which is nice. There's a lot of mechanics that are there. The biggest thing to be aware of for Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is that just in the base game, I'm going to talk about its first expansion, which is names I don't know, like Stir of the Night or something. I have no idea. But the base game is much more gamey than it is storytelling. So it's kind of like, I don't want to call it Arkham Horror Pandemic, but there is a lot of upkeep in this game in terms of its playstyle. So where in Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, you would spend a lot of time exploring the city, being able to take breaks and like go to the magic shop or the curiosity shop or the newspaper and get a job and kind of live that flavor of it. Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, there's no time. Like Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is game first, where Arkham Horror 2nd Edition was story first. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. I've enjoyed Arkham Horror 3rd Edition more each time I've played it because I've kind of just accepted that this is not Arkham Horror 3rd Edition in comparison to 2nd Edition. This is its own version of Arkham Horror. So much so that I understand why Fantasy Flight didn't, but I wish it was rebranded. It was branded something else, but I completely understand why they didn't do that. Because this is not Arkham Horror 3rd Edition to 2nd Edition. This is its own awesome game that is still very fun and still flavorful enough to fit in the lore and give me as a player that feeling that I want from these games. So as I said, the game is very gamey, so there's going to be a lot of upkeep, so you're not going to have time to live in the world. Because of this, though, the encounter system is cleaner in this game. The encounter system in Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is fantastic. The clue mechanic in Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is amazing. That design for that clue system was awesome. The flavor on that clue system is, I think, the best use of the clue system in the game. And the mode of telling the stories, like, so where in Arkham Horror 2nd Edition and Eldritch Horror, where you choose an ancient one and it's randomized how you win, this one tells set stories like Mansions of Madness. So because of that, the replayability for Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is lower than I would like it to be as in comparison to the previous ones. But I think if you just accept that that's how they can tell better stories this way, they're going for a more storytelling system at the cost of replayability, which might not be for everyone, but it's something to just be aware of if you're looking at Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. As well, what was I going to say? I was doing so good, and I just had a complete brain fart. As well as the fact that it's more of a game than a storytelling thing. Like, it makes it so that they have more control over the story they're telling, because it's not sandbox, where Eldritch Horror and Arkham Horror 2nd Edition are more sandbox type games. This one is pretty much like, it's like Pandemic. If you don't keep up with the game board will beat you a lot quicker than the other ones. The first expansion, Dead by Night, Deadly Nights, Neighborhood of Death, I don't even know what it's called, but the two scenarios in that one are leagues, in my opinion, leagues better than the ones in the base game. So it's honestly like the game, apart from Arkham Horror the card game, I'm so excited about where this game's going to go. I haven't picked up the newest expansion, Deep Waters or Dark Waters, whatever it's called, but I'm very excited to play it. And I just think that I'm going to like the game more and more each time I play it. I have replayed scenarios, and the game is still fun because there still are a few things, like the encounters are random, the clues are random. The Mythos phase, I will say, is very tedious in 3rd edition. That's probably my biggest slight with the game, is the fact that the frickin' Mythos phase is just a chore. It's not easy. I don't really enjoy it as much. Like, it does get quicker, especially if you like give people jobs, but if you're teaching people Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, you're going to have to pretty much do everything in the Mythos phase, and it's going to just be a snore, man. It's a drag. But luckily the game itself, like, there's a lot good in it. Pros for Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. If you're more of a board gamer than looking for just an open sandbox flavorful experience, Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is defs for you. For this entire list, I just think that Arkham Horror, if you're looking for a game itself, the flavor is still very good, and the stories they tell, especially in the expansions, get really exciting and really engaging. And it gives them kind of more control over what they want to do, which is really neat. Biggest cons against Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, I wish there was more time, because I love living in the world, and I do feel like it kind of lacks a bit. So because the game is such a game, if you want that narrative experience, 3rd edition is probably not for you. The Mythos phase is not fun, well, the Mythos phase, I don't want to say is ever fun in these games. It's where the game plays against you, but this is probably the least fun to perform as the player, to have the game play against you. And I don't think I can think of any more pros, but I think the game is still very good. I don't think there's any of these Arkham Horror games, I don't think there's any bad ones. It really just depends on the type of game you want. And I hope that I was able to, like, you know, provide some information for what you may be looking for when it comes to these, because if I was just starting now, I would have been like, what do I do? There's so many of them. How do I know which ones to buy? If only there was some dumb guy with a mustache who could tell me what to do, I'd feel so good. So hopefully this helps with that, because I bought Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. I bought them actually, like, pretty much in order. Like, this is not the order, but yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want me to delve further into any of these games, let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, I will respond to the comments. So just let me know. And if you're new to this channel and you haven't been here before, why don't you click that subscribe button? We release a bunch of content in these games, and a bunch more. Like this video. It really helps push us up the algorithm, and maybe it'll cause me to make more discussion videos like this about other series. This is probably the game series that I'm most knowledgeable about, so there is that. But thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.